So we're standing here in front of locomotive 191, which has recently come into the Roundhouse for some significant repair work. Dusty, can you kind of tell us a little bit about what we're going to do?
Yeah, so a little backstory on the locomotive. It was built in 1880 by Baldwin for the Denver, Leadville, and Gunnison, and then later DSPMP, and then finally CNS before it went out east to a lumber company out in, I want to say it was Michigan or Wisconsin, one of those two. I don't remember exactly, but it finally came back. This is the oldest steam locomotive in Colorado, non-operational, won't ever operate because it's got a wrought iron or wrought steel boiler. But we're going to do a new front pilot beam and new cow catcher. Both of those are rotted out and need replaced.
Using oak?
Yes, oak. We're going to do new running boards on it. These are starting to cup and succumb to the elements. And then the biggest part, we're going to do a complete brand new cab, everything, floor, walls, roof. This locomotive was restored probably about 15 years ago, maybe a little longer, cosmetically. And the problem was they used poplar on the cab, and as you can see, the Colorado weather has not been kind to it. Back originally, the cab probably would have been made out of ash or poplar, but new growth is not anywhere near like it used to be, for old growth wood. So the grain structure is not as tight, so you get water inclusion, and this stuff happens. So we're in a phase of drawing up the cab currently, so we don't have a drawing on it. As soon as we get that drawn up, we'll do a parts list and get a wood list that we need of all the components and start ripping it apart, which sometime this spring we'll start that process, but it'll probably be in here most of this year getting that work done. But we'll paint it, and we also have to rebuild the tenders outside, which you can see here in a little bit. It needs a new frame built for it. The front corner's falling off of it, and reason is they used pieces of wood when they built that frame, so it was already not great wood when they built the new frame for it, and so that's
structural paint.
Install 5 in the shop. Another little side project we've got going on is the DNSL phone booth. Came in for roof repair, some wood repair that was rotted, but this was a little online phone booth where trains could stop, and it has a phone in it, and they could wire into the main office and tell them what was going on or check progress and everything. But it's getting a paint job, some minor wood repair, and we'll get a new felt paper tar roof. We'll put new glass in it too. It had pieces of plexiglass in it that have all crazed and turned yellow, so we'll put actual glass back in it and then put it back outside. It'll probably be in here for about a month, so not too big of a project.
What's this engine block we got here?
So that is a GM truck engine that came out of Motor 7 or Goose 7, and that is the last motor that it ran with on the RGS, the Rio Grande Southern. It was locked up when the museum got Motor 7, so they took it out. They couldn't find parts at the time, so they opted to put a 50s era GM truck engine in it in place of this. This one is a war surplus era GM. I think it's a 361 if I remember correctly. Big old straight six. We have been tracking parts down, and we are trying to get this rebuilt. We've talked to a machine shop. They said that they will probably have to sleeve the cylinders, but this engine should possibly be rebuildable. Just a matter if we can get it in our budget. But if we get it rebuilt, we'll put it back in Motor 7, and it'll be back to more historically accurate. This is Colorado Midland Observation Car 111. It was built in 1887 by Pullman. Originally it was open vestibule at both ends. They later redid it and made it a closed vestibule on this leading edge and put an observation platform on the back end, and they used it for wildflower excursion trains along the Colorado Midland and private events. Midland ceased to be after World War I, In 1919, the Midland Terminal took over the portion of the line from Colorado Springs to Cripple Creek. They took this car over and had it until 49. The museum then acquired it in 59, and it has been here since, outside, like most everything here, and we are completely redoing the exterior. As you can see, we're doing a lot of belt rail replacement, and a lot of our vertical pieces are getting spliced in where they've got rot. We're gonna started stripping the letterboard. We're gonna have to pull out sections of the letterboard that have rot and replace those. The museum did the interior about 30 years ago, so the interior needs some freshening up and a couple pieces cleaned up where the roof had a few leaks, but otherwise the interior is pretty good, so it'll just get freshened up. But the whole rear platform has been rebuilt with the intermediate sill and the end sill, and it's all new decking in here. So the end platform is about done as far as structure work. Then we just have to put everything back together. And this has brass columns that are normally back here on the edges of the wall, and it's all lined in mahogany and stained and varnished and looks really pretty. And yeah, this car's probably got about another year of work. Maybe by the end of this year it will be done. So, but as you can see, it's a big task, and the farther you get into something like this, the more work you find is going to have to be done to it. So. Good news is we're getting to the point, once these side belt rail pieces are done, we can start sighting this side of the car. We'll go from the far end and work our way to the end. And then once we get the platform more buttoned up, we'll start at the far corner on the end of the car and work towards the front.
Looks like quite a project.
It is. Stuff's set outside for, 60 plus years. No matter how much paint you try to put on it, eventually you're going to get wood rot. And this car will go under our completed, our first piece of covered storage, besides the Roundhouse for equipment, up by the main depot. We've got a car pavilion that's going to have this car and the CB&Q 96 car underneath it, and that should help protect it from the elements. We're doing an all new tin roof, which is actually done out of copper. The company that we've got,
Excuse me.
the company we've got doing it, instead of using tin like it would have originally been, they're going to make it out of copper, and then it will be painted in tarred black, so it'll look correct, but it'll be made out of copper instead of tin. And then not much going on in the machine shop area, just minor bits and pieces going on. But then we've got RGS 20, Rio Grande Southern Twine. Built in 1899 by Schenectady, originally for the Florence and Cripple Creek. Ran between Florence, Colorado, Cripple Creek, Colorado. It ran on that line until 1917 when a flood took out the canyon. I think the flood was actually in 15, and it wasn't until 17 that they decided to close the railroad down. Then it was sold to the Rio Grande Southern, and then when the Rio Grande Southern closed in 1951, the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club picked it up at the scrap auction, and they owned it until 2006. And it was at the museum since the very beginning because they didn't have a place to store their equipment, but they turned it over to us in 2006, and we started a 14-year, $2 million restoration project that was finished in 2020. But it's one of our 3 operating steam engines. It's just basically sitting here. It's going to get a few little work done on check valves. Otherwise, it's ready to go. Put the check valves back in it, boiler plugs, fill it with water, and we'll fire it up. It doesn't need a whole lot of work right now.
I know it's a popular locomotive.
Yep.
Lots of people like to see it.
Yeah, right now we've got this first stall. We've got our originally built by GE in 1955 as a 45-tonner. It was later ballasted with an extra 10 tons of plate to make it a 55-ton switcher, narrow gauge, 3-foot gauge. We're doing new air tanks that still have the original air tanks from 1955 that have several dents from previous accidents and all kinds of stuff before it came to us. So we're going through replacing those because they're starting to get rotted out on the inside, and we're worried about them rupturing. Also going through our air compressors, we had some unloading issues with the air compressor system not wanting to turn off, so going through rebuilding that. It'll probably be in here another week or so, and then we'll start using it for our Saturday train rides. And then last but not least, Denver Rio Grande Western 491. It's broken apart from its tender. We are currently building a new tender for the tender cistern for the locomotive. We'll take the old tender, take all the hardware off it, the grab irons, handrails, anything that's usable. It will all get made, transferred over to the new tender cistern that's been made. It's sitting outside. You can get a shot of that here in a minute. But that's a project that we're going to work on this spring to hopefully get this locomotive running by summer. But otherwise, this is one of our other operating locomotives, and use it mostly for Polar Express. But yeah, it's just taken apart from its tender so we can take the old one apart and also have another piece on top of the pit. So that's what we've got going on in the shop right now. Any other questions about anything? Or?
No, everything looks great. A lot of
Yeah.
projects in process, and everybody's working on something.
Yep. So be sure to come visit.